recording made on March 13th, 1973. The recording took place in Jack Moomaw's home at Lyons, Colorado. It was during an interview with Mr. Moomaw that a knock on the door announced the arrival of Harold M. Dunning. The tape opens with the sound of the knock on the door. Other voices on the tape are those of Mr. Harold Wignall and his wife, Gretty. The latter part of the recording was made in Moomaw's yard while some filming of these two men was taking place. Mr. Dunning died 1 week later.
Come in now. Yeah, come on in. Harold Dunning, I think. Sounds like it. Wow. Anyway, there was a big to-do and a big squabble and feud. Hi, Harold. You know these folks? Anybody with you? Huh? Oh, well, there's
No, but I recognize Harold Dunning. I've read enough of his books. My name's Howard Wignall. This is my wife, Greta.
Wignall.
Wignall from
I'm sure glad to know you.
Howard Wignall's my name.
Get a chance to that.
Mrs. Dunning?
Greta Wignall.
These guys have got a box going here and me and talking.
You haven't
That's the fourth time in the last 10 days I've been talking to one of these boxes. I'm just wondering why. I was just wondering about that shooting. Get a chair up. There's another one in here. That shooting over in Hollowell Park. Do you know anything about it or remember? Oh, way back.
What about Hollowell Park?
A shooting occurred over there.
Oh, a long time ago?
Yeah. A man shot another man over there.
Oh, gosh, I don't know if I heard about that or not.
Oh, yeah. Hollowell, Frank Hollowell, must have been the son of this old man worked on the roads. When I was a ranger up first, a man, the rangers didn't have nothing else to do. He worked on the road with a road. And this Frank Hollowell worked there. Well, somebody else was telling me about this shooting site. Over by the old Hope Homestead. You remember that two-story log house? Great big log. Hondius bought the old Hope Homestead. Well, somewhere over there somebody lived.
That old home's gone now, isn't it? There's no sign of it.
Oh, everything's gone now.
I got a picture of it, thank goodness.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, a nice one.
I may have one somewhere.
With the folks in front of it.
Yeah, well, anyway, these guys had a poker game one night, and one man got mad or something, thought it was cheating, got him left and went, gave him a gun, said come back, kill somebody out of it.
Good gosh.
Well, and pretty soon they looked and said, here he was coming.
But Jack, you're looking good.
Well, one of the guys in the house jumped up and got a Winchester and shot this guy, killed him. But this Frank Hollowell, the young man, was in there. He got so scared he missed his pants. And that's the part I remember that this fellow was telling me that Frank, he said, that guy there got so scared, you know. And,
I never heard that.
Oh, yeah. And nobody seems to ever write about it, what it is. And I'm trying to dig up the names in my mind. Somebody's going to get pretty quick because I'm the last one I guess to know about it.
You're the only one I ever heard talk about it.
Oh, Jabe Billings was there. Jabe did a lot of work for workmen up there when the workmen had that place up there. Did you have some other notes there, just questions?
No, we don't want to take any more of your time.
Well, you're not taking up my time.
Believe me,
That must have been,
We can come anytime.
it must have been Jay's, or Norm's dad that lived there then?
He was an uncle. Jay was an uncle of Norm.
Oh.
Yeah.
Who was the daddy of those guys? That's what I don't think I've ever been able to find out.
Well, it wasn't the Billings that had the homestead up here. That's a branch of the family on one of them.
Was that up on the Little Thompson?
Well, I mean, the
North Fork?
Oh, the Button Rock Dam in there.
Yeah.
You know, they had a homestead in there, and that woman rolled out one night to get a
Was that the pioneers?
Yeah.
The first ones?
Well, anyway, that's so these people were just like Jay was a cousin or an uncle or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Jay, he lived in Horseshoe Park when I was a ranger there. Shipwreck Rangers, I worked on roads. And we had poker games then, they'd get together and get talking about the old time. That's why I picked up a lot of that stuff.
I got
it was first hand with them, but to me it was rather interesting and something new.
I guess the genealogy in one of my books of the Billings family, but there was a lot of them, I guess.
Well, it's branch of the family.
Yeah.
Well, the family that was over up around Button Rock and up there.
I think I got my genealogy from Norm or his wife, I don't know which.
Well, his wife was a McCall.
Yeah, that's right.
They homesteaded out there right by McCall Lake. Well, I don't know about that when you're talking about there.
Well,
It couldn't have been the old Gus Flum when he killed Dad Allen up in Big Elk.
no, I read about that one too, but this is different. I'll have to dig it out and bring it up to you.
I never did find any account of that shooting in Big Elk. Written anyway.
They're writing a lot of stuff now that I don't believe it.
No, you
Well,
can't
some of it I
separate.
know.
Yeah,
Because just like old Dad Allen, or Gus, I was hunting deer, we had a sawmill up there in Big Elk. And whenever the first snow come, everybody get out, close the mill, everybody go hunting. And the Flow boys lived down below us there. And they had the old Gus had killed Dad Allen several years before.
Mhm.
And I was riding down through the city, and here come old Gus riding the horse, swinging a gat, looked to be about that long, probably one of them old 45 cap balls. He said, I killed one son of a bitch, I'm going to kill another. Well, I didn't know just exactly what he had in mind, so I kind of eased over a little bit, and
he's talking to you,
but he went by and
huh?
hi, Jacob, spoke broken, and went on, and I found out later, some of these Edwards down there had bought some lumber from my dad, see? And they had left one of his gates open. Cows get out. And he was hunting them up. And he found them, and I guess he scared that they bought quite a pile of lumber. Must have scared the liver out of them because they never come back to get the rest of the lumber.
I wouldn't either.
But I knew about those things, and all that stuff was on the up and okay. It's so near that by this time, if anybody ever does, it's probably stretched out, but
Of course,
I knew just details.
I knew Charlie Thomas so well because I bought a team of horses of him in Estes, and that was in fall of '16.
Everybody was afraid of Charlie. He was a kind of a bully.
Well, I don't know. Charlie was a nice guy,
In a lot
except
of
when he
ways,
got
yeah.
drunk. When he got drunk, he was a terror.
Yeah, he just, God, he was wild.
That sounds like Jim Nugent, the way they used to write about him. He was a
Yeah.
gentleman and a poet and everything else, so they
So
got slacked.
he was long before my time.
Yeah.
I was just telling him I knew where that cabin site was. I think I pointed it out to you or Dan Matlack or somebody where
Jim's?
it was.
I mean, Jim's
Yeah.
Nugent. Well, I walked over every inch of that area, and
You
I
can't
can't find one trace of anything. in
Well,
there.
one of those guys, what was it, Isabel from Texas, bought that place.
Yeah.
Well, see, this fellow had this sawmill here. Blair
Yeah.
married Charlie Thomas's mother.
Oh,
He
I
lived
didn't
it.
know that.
Yeah. And he had a sawmill down there. And I worked there a few days, and I knew the cabin then, there was no logs around.
Mm.
And he told me that was the old Rocky Mountain Jim's cabin. Later on, lost somebody hauled logs away for wood. Then, when these guys Isabel bought that, Texas, they used to have to go down the road a ways across the stream to come back up that canyon and went up to Hermit Park or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And at the house, they could cross the gulf. They went over there and bladed the road, and they bladed it right square through where the cabin was.
Where Jim's house was.
Yeah, just before you come down there from where Betterdale is now.
Mm-hmm.
And you go a little way, and then there's a gulch. Well, before you go up that gulch, it's fairly good sized stones, boulders.
Hmm.
It was right there. Last time I was up there, I got some pieces, a piece or two of old crockery
Yeah,
and some square nails, and that's about all there
I
was.
couldn't even find any of that.
They just bladed that, just the whole blame side and put the road right back there. Of course, it didn't mean anything, but they didn't even know about it, I guess.
But I had a picture of an old house up in Goulash with it Park.
Where?
Wait a minute.
Volusia Town?
Galusha Town.
Galusha Park.
Yeah, that's up north of Forks Hotel in there. When they got ties out for the Colorado Central Railroad, they had a camp up in there, and they called it a little Galusha Town.
Well, that was over here.
Yeah.
Well, Fred Galusha had a place, homestead back up in there off Elk Park.
Oh, we did.
Fred Galusha, he was a clubfoot. In the old days, you used to see quite a few club-footed people born that way.
Mm-hmm.
Their whole life they went with one foot, turned in. Fred Galusha had a clubfoot.
Yeah,
There
I've
was
heard
Galusha
that.
Park up in there.
But I had this picture of this cabin transferred onto the location, Jim's location in there. And the photographer done a swell job of it. You just think the cabin was always there, and I called it Jim's cabin.
Well, that was over in that way. It wasn't up here, you mean?
It was up there right where
Oh.
Jim's cabin was.
Yeah.
But
Well, you mean Galusha had it?
it was
He
a cabin.
transposed the picture.
Yeah,
Oh.
it was a cabin that Galusha's had up where they got this timber out, these ties now.
Well, that could have been.
And then there was an artist in Estes Park that painted a picture of Jim, So I got them both, and they're in
Yeah.
my little book about Jim's life. Oh, I don't know. Jim was a good man. He was an Englishman and
Well, I guess.
well educated, but the drink what's ruined him.
Well, it was a different kind of a way of life then. Say, have you got this book of harps and kingery?
Mm-hmm. High country names?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the National Park Service down the other day, superintendent of the naturalist was one of these things in notes, and they brought me down this book. It seemed like if I mentioned in there no more than
Yeah.
12, 15 times.
Yeah, you're in there a lot of times.
Well, anyway, I'm going through that, and some of that's wrong.
Yeah, I know it. I wrote to him and
Yeah.
told him things that were wrong, and
So I'm just noting them down, see.
they
did?
thanked me
They,
for it.
do you think harps and paying attention to it?
Yes, they do. They've thanked me for telling them.
The East Face Shrine, the way she describes it there, she mentions Alexander. And the next day, a few days later, some of the mountain folks find it. Well, if she'd have read looking Rocky Mountain Ranger, she wouldn't have that version of it at all. Because Alexander and I went, well, who took the pictures of for the Favors magazine? I took. Somebody had taken. I was the guy that was the next day.
Oh, they're getting a lot of things wrong, but then
I didn't think I'd even write too much detail. They can't change that stuff. I don't know why they should. What difference? It don't make a lot of difference, does it?
I've tried not to put anything in my books that if I didn't know it was pretty straight.
One thing I want to ask you before I forget, and did old Squeaky Bob ever get even with you for sending him that skunk oil through the mail?
No, Squeaky got sick after that. He got he had a tumor or a cancer or something in his stomach, and he went to Denver. I think it was a year or two after that, and he was operated. I don't know. I seen him afterwards. He came back up there, but he wouldn't feel very good.
Mm.
He said they cut out a chunk of it, and then he went back to Denver, and I never did see him after that much.
He died in Denver. He
Yeah.
died in Denver.
So
I laughed at that when I read that in your book and said he was going to get even with you if it was the last thing he ever did.
yeah, I think he cussed for 20 minutes without repeating, and he could,
The one story I heard about Squeaky, a lady that was there at the time it happened, wrote this to me, and she said that in the morning he was mixing up some pancake batter in a bucket, a water bucket. And somehow or other he dropped it. It made him mad, and he kicked it, and seemed like the bail caught on his pants or shoes some way. And he kicked and kicked, trying to get the bucket off, and he had pancake batter all over the house.
Yeah, he made good pancakes.
Yeah, I always tell on my shows that he was a good cook.
Sure.
When Roosevelt stopped there, old Theodore, one time, he fell in love with his biscuits and made him famous wherever he went after that. Talking about
I don't know. You heard the one about Squeaky, but he stayed in there in winter. He used to quite often.
Yeah.
You heard the one about the people down the Grand Lake. Said, Squeak, why don't you send down a little meat once in a while? You know.
Mm-hmm.
So when they go up there, why, he'd have a quarter or send down, dressed out and cut off. And the next spring, someone was up there and looked around and said, Squeak, where's all the donkeys you had around there last winter? Hell, he said, you guys ought to know you've been eating them all winter. He said, you said meat. You didn't say what kind of meat.
Oh, great. That's like the guys over at the station on the booter. Some guy come out with a carcass all cut up in his truck. When they examined it, it had shoes on it. And it was a jackass, I guess. Somebody killed for a deer. I don't know how true it is, but they said it
Well,
really happened.
I don't know why they wouldn't be good eating.
Well, no,
I don't
the
know.
Indians liked horse meat. It couldn't be too much different.
It'd be dark meat,
Well,
I suppose. I guess. I don't know. Of course, this place on earth where they do eat them, I guess.
Maybe you better explain to Mr. Dunn who we are.
Who's on?
That,
Huh?
well, she was just mentioning why we're here. We bought a little piece of ground up in Estes Park, but years ago we got interested in the park itself from an archaeological standpoint, and I make documentary films to go along with this. I've never made a nickel off of them. I show them to kids, Boy Scouts, the church groups, the bird watchers down here in Denver, and even the Archaeological Society asked me to run some the night we were down there. But I didn't mention this. Even made one on the little railroad, between Durango and Silverton, and hiking back in that country, climbing Aeolus and Sunlight and Wyndham Peaks. Got a beautiful little film on that. But I guess what triggered me off first was the article in your book, The History of Trail Ridge, where you quoted Jack about those two old walls up there, on Trail Ridge. So she and I went up to find them, and we did. She found them, and I was grateful that old Jack had measured them.
Yeah. I just copied his
Yeah.
article about it.
So when I was here a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned to Jack that there's more there than meets the eye, because if you take the dimensions of those two walls and add them together, and then divide by the length of the short one, it comes out to be pi right on the nose.
Is that right?
And why? What the dickens would an Indian know about geometry, or even care about pi for? It may just be a whale of a coincidence, you see.
Well, I don't know. Some of those ancients, they used the stars and did a lot of things.
Yeah, they did.
And we are rather amazed at some things.
They were pretty smart.
So that kind of triggered my imagination, and I mentioned to my wife, why not make a documentary just on the archaeological remnants in that park, the things you can photograph. It's hard to photograph someone finding an
yeah.
But
They're not as spectacular as the Southwest and all that kind of stuff.
no, but they're just as intriguing, really.
Well, to me, they are in a lot of ways. Because a lot of this stuff is a good deal older than that down there. You take that down there, a lot of that's under 1,000 years.
Sure.
And this stuff here, you run across stuff out here that goes, oh Lord, clear back.
No telling how long ago.
Oh, well, we know some of it by the strata deposition, like for 11,000. Some around here, we find stuff around here, undoubtedly, over 8,000, 9,000 years old. And when you stop and think that if it was only 4,000 years old, it would be as long before BC as we are in the sun of BC. See?
Yeah.
That's right.
So when you stop and think about that, and you go up the hill and find some stuff that you know runs back 7,000 or 8,000 years. Well, you can't help but wonder what kind of people were poking around here. And they apparently, quite a few, I wouldn't say as a small population over a long period of time, rather than a bigger population over a shorter time. It's just like finding a steatite vase on the west side of Steamboat Mountain and stuff like that, and then right near finding a base of Yuma Clovis complex, see? And 2,000-3,000 years between the two, right there in one spot. I raked that hillside, and everybody thought it nuts, I guess, but...
Been humans here a long time.
Oh, what does?
Have you been to the medicine wheel? I suppose you have.
No, we've
Well,
done very little of that. The only time we ever got involved with Indians is when we lived in Idaho years and years ago. And we'd go up there around, what do they call it, Fort Hall?
Yeah.
Up there towards Blackfoot. They used to have the rain dances and the sun dances up there and one thing and another, but I didn't know enough about Indian lore, and then what we could see of it, it looked like a big drunken orgy to us, you know. They all
younger Indians.
Yeah.
The older ones.
And the older ones wouldn't participate. And the only time we'd ever see them is when they would have a parade there in Pocatello.
Yeah.
And then the old Indians would come out and,
Well, that's the older ones, the ones that I hobnob with.
Uh-huh.
And,
Well, that's why we brought you that picture of that old Navajo down there. Take a look at that, Mr. Dunning.
That's
That was
pretty.
done by an artist and a woman in Denver. I told her about Jack, and I said he works, he lives, he studies these Indians. As I want something that typifies one of the older generation.
That's very good.
The look in the eyes is...
he hasn't got an eagle on him, has he?
No, I don't
Anyway.
think so.
But,
But that's a pastel, you know, it's...
Yeah, that's beyond the glass. Pastel, that should be. You don't dare leave him out of it.
But that woman...
Are you sure there isn't an eagle somewhere on it?
I don't think so. He's got those blue beads around his neck, you see.
she drew it from a photograph.
She goes out, and every summer she photographs these Indians, and she had one there of an Ogallala Sioux, but she says that might be too old. But she says, well, he knows Indians from coast to coast, but the way I gather listening to him talk, it's the southwestern
Yes,
Indians that intrigue him the most.
That's the white blood in him.
You think so?
Shows a trace of it.
The eyes...
How can you tell that, Jack?
I don't know.
Through the eyes.
It's awful hard to find Indians anywhere that there isn't a trace of white.
Well, this is what we found with the Blackfoot Indians. They had a mixture of Spanish and
I
Negro.
just-
And
So,
his eyes remind me of my father's eyes. We're not
You
quite
see, you got quite a family over here, Jack.
yeah.
Well, yeah, we've certainly taken enough of his time.
No,
I
I
have
didn't
to
do
ask you
that.
one more thing. When you were going across the trail ridge in the winter time on skis, the way you spoke of it, what in the world did you people have to eat at that time? What did you take along to live on outdoors?
Oh, you wouldn't be out over 3 or 4 days at a time, as a rule. Oh. I used to carry raisins packaged, and I used to like to eat bullet cubes.
Yeah.
And you know when you're skiing in the winter, how you crave salt,
Yeah.
how thirsty you get. I used to put it back of bullet cubes, and of course now, well, way up, way back, we built those cabins in the summertime. We stocked them with, well, gasoline lantern, gasoline, and cut wood, and then started wooden stove, and put in a lot of food of all different kinds. And all you took along as a rule was maybe some fresh meat, eggs, and bread. But before that, why, just what you carry in your pack.
The reason I ask is I usually carry the food so he doesn't dare lose me. He has the camera, I've got the food, so he has to wait
Makes
for
quite
it.
a load, you know. We carry this, and I carry that camera, and it's behind you right there. And on some of these excursions, I've lugged this stuff clear up to the top of La Plata Peak.
So,
Yeah, 14,000. What is it, the third or fourth highest in the state,
Yeah.
you know, down there in the Swatch. Done a lot of that. Packed all this stuff clear back into the Chicago Basin there, off the, back in the San Juans.
We were telling Mr. Moomaw, every year the lakes just recede a little further.
Oh, boy. They get any more-
Seems steeper and all that
Yeah.
further, yeah.
Takes a little longer to get in shape. And then when I read his account of how he crossed the divide on skis and carrying a load of stuff and chasing some of those poachers, I thought, my God, what iron legs he must have had and lungs to match.
What did you
That's
take
why
in your
he's still
pass
in
when you
such
went
good
over
shape.
the Boulder Grand Pass? What did you take to eat? You remember?
I don't remember it all.
Did
We
Estes-
stopped at Thunder Lake Cabin and stayed overnight.
Well, I crossed through there along with one of the cabins there.
Then we'd go on into Grand Lake next, and they'd meet us down the village and take us up. And man, oh man, talk about a feed.
It was really stuck.
Yeah, you mentioned that in your book. There was nothing that was more comforting than the light in the cabin, you know, at the end of one of those
No.
trails. Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote a poem once about there's nothing in towns or cities or anywhere that can compare to the light of a cabin.
I tell you
in the
something
mountains.
funny when Charlie Hughes told us about this. He and his brother Steve went over Boulder Grand Pass years ago, and it was way pitch dark when they got into Grand Lake, and they were feeling around, you know, they couldn't see, and finally old Steve bumped into some kind of a building. He took a whiff of it and he said, "God bless this shit house."
Yeah.
Oh, brother.
Yep. They had found civilization.
Yeah.
Well, we had an experience like that last summer, she and I. We'd gone clear up to Snowbank Lake, and I hung in there until I got some evening pictures of the sun going down, you know, and that's 9 miles, you know, from Wild
Yeah.
Basin Trailhead. So we stumbled down that trail, lost it once, and had to hunt all around to find it again. And we finally got down to the Thunder Lake Trail, and I guess we got down as far as Calypso Cascades. We were almost home when the flashlight gave out.
Uh-oh.
And it was overcast, just blacker than the inside of a depot stove, you know. And we couldn't see our hand in front of our face. Well, we finally decided, well, the best thing is just to sit here till morning, or wait until somebody else come along with a flashlight, you know. So we did. We spent the night there, and about 4 o'clock next morning, I woke up and the stars were out, and my gosh, we could see the trail, and so we started down. And we got in the car, I guess about, we left there, Wild Basin, about 5:30 in the morning, just at sunup in the summer, and ran onto 3 coyotes right down there by Copeland Lake. Magnificent beasts. And of course, I had the camera and everything all buttoned up in the trunk. That's usually where that thing is, you know, when
Yeah.
the interesting comes along.
It happens that way.
Have you been over the new road lately? From South St. Ray? Man, they're cutting all the curves out and going right straight through.
South.
Huh?
I haven't been up south this winter.
Oh,
They
Early in
really,
the fall, I was up there.
from
Some people
from,
took me up as far as
from Alice Park north,
from
for
where?
3 miles, they're
Oh no, I
changing the whole thing.
They straightened it around.
Boy, you won't know it.
Wouldn't
that's a mess.
Yeah, they ruined it.
They did for me too.
What's the matter with the way it was?
That's what I
Nothing.
wondered.
You couldn't go 100 miles an hour on it.
No.
That's what was wrong with
It was a
it.
good road.
Sure, it was a good
Nothing
road.
wrong
We just
with
came over. We just came down. We were
Yeah.
up to Estes and we came on out that way.
Oh, we just came from there too.
I,
We came from Estes too.
oh, did you?
it. Well, they came
That
from-
way?
Yeah, we'd
Through
gone up
Allen?
the Middle St. Vrain this morning and then circled
Oh.
around. I stopped and took some pictures, shot a few feet of film of the Wild Basin from up on top of one of those mountains up there that, there's a scenic view, they call it, a wide spot in the road. And I got out of the car and walked up to the top of the mountain there, and only to find I was in trees so thick that I couldn't see the mountains anymore.
Hmm.
So we shot a few feet of film up there.
He made a picture of I can't think either.
The what?
The Wild Basin. He made this film of the Wild Basin, and he wanted a shot from way back with the winter and the snow on the mountain.
I think one of the best views of Wild Basin is on that trail that goes in from Allen's Park over to what they call Klondike.
We have a
And it
big-
comes in there, and it
Never
goes
been
down
over
and
there.
crosses Calypso Cascade.
Oh,
I built that at Allen's Park years ago with a crew of men, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And you come around there through that Aspen, and up through what you call Klondike Pete lived over there. He's been to Klondike. Had a little cabin in it. And then it comes around, and it winds around and comes right up on the Estes Brain. When you come up, all the wild basin just pops out.
Hmm.
You remember old Oscar Rubendahl?
Yeah.
Years ago. Rough talking scoundrel, and he didn't, well, you remember Kitely? Longman had a cabin up there. But after I got it down, my Kitely wanted to ride over it, so she got old Rubendahl to bring a couple of horses up. And they started Allen's Park and went over it. But old Rubendahl was ahead. And just riding along through, he come out to that point and he stopped. She said he just sat there a little while. He said, "Hey, Kite, come up here and look at that. Look at that view. Ain't that a son of a bitch?" That was the height of his. The Cavalier's expressed on. Well, I think, really, I have an album of all wild basin pictures. Still have the films filed of them. And I think that is the best view of wild basin that you can get. Because you get Maker along the back country and you get the basin right down in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get seeing as much of Meadow Mountain and St. Vrain Mountain.
I took a picture from right up in there on top of Boulder Grand Pass looking back east. And I took it in two, and it's about this long.
Yeah.
I had it enlarged, and God, it's a view.
I took one of the 3 or 4 pictures in a row and put it together of that, but not from where I'm telling, because there, I took mine further north.
I got a
And
picture.
that one, you ever been over that trail? I used to have a good bridge down there. I mean, it's probably gone now across the road, because there, I took mine further north.
I got a
And
picture.
that one, you ever been over that trail? I used to have a good bridge down there. I mean, it's probably gone now across Calypso.
Oh,
You
Calypso.
come down off the mountain, say, out of Allen's Park.
There's a bridge there.
There is
I think it's a new one, though.
probably.
Oh, I haven't been up there for a long
Would be.
time.
I haven't either.
Well, there's several new bridges in there. We crossed those, I guess, 15, 20 times last summer.
Hmm.
And they're new. The rails on some of them are going, but like any wood does, you know,
Yeah.
it isn't pressure treated some way with
Yeah.
creosote or
Well, I don't recall it. We even failed
phenol or
one.
something.
I took a picture from the top of Boulder Grand Pass looking west, down on those 3 lakes.
Yeah.
I would call them Trinity Lakes, but they don't call them that now.
No, well, they never did.
I guess
Hughes.
not.
That's what the people like Hughes come in and they come in naming.
Yeah.
He seen that being a religious-minded person. He called Trinity Lakes. When I was a kid, they didn't call them Trinity Lakes. They were the Vernon
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the lowest.
Lakes.
Yeah.
And then the ones above them were the,
But I still call them Trinity Lakes. I
But they
skied right
were-
across the middle of them.
yeah, I know, they looked at but that wasn't the original name
We
of those
skied
lakes
right
at
across
all.
the middle of Grand Lake.
And that
Got
wasn't the
pictures
original
of it.
name, you say.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know why Hughes thought they hadn't been named. They were named long before we were up there.
Yeah.
Well, did the Indians name any of this country up there? Did they have names for these
Yeah.
places?
Yeah, oh,
Pretty
yeah.
hard and pretty doubtful. I don't know.
But,
No record had been kept of them?
oh
Or?
yeah,
Prospect.
that book in here. You
Yeah.
a lot of them.
I got a
but,
book to them.
I questioned some of them because in the interpretation, translation goes haywire.
Yeah.
And then I think a lot of those old Indians were good deal like white men. They like to tell a tall one once in a while.
Yeah.
That's a fact. I've talked to a lot of old ones. And I have to take some of their things with a grain of salt. And,
Well, I think that whole book of tolls is kind of fishy.
what?
About those, with those Indians they brought over here. I can't think the Indians knew much about it,
About what?
about this region. They were supposed to be boys here, weren't they, when they were little kids?
Oh, the ones they brought down there?
Yeah, the
Oh,
3.
yeah, I got to say that. I just wondered sometimes. Did they actually know what they were saying?
That's what I
They'd
wondered.
heard about it, and
Yeah.
if they didn't have it, they just invented something.
It's silly.
Yeah, you got.
Particularly if they're
I've
just-
often thought that. Yeah.
One of the old Indians, I was tickled at his description they gave of sitting on his horse. Said it looked like a big gunny sack full of wood. The way this old Indian sat on his horse. And I thought that was a pretty good description. There's a lot of good things in that book, but
I've heard some women described as having a figure like a sack of doorknobs, you know. You ever heard that?
yeah.
Should we raise and give them an
Well,
argument?
anyway.
We'll have to.
Yeah,
go to
sack of
pretty
potatoes.
quick,
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember Helene Wenzel, the sister of Sybil Kinder, who worked the trail up there
I don't believe I
for
do.
years? That's the Spark Trail.
I don't remember those.
Great big husky. She was so 28, 9.
Mhm.
But she'd weigh on 200 pounds. She wasn't too fat either. They run that hotel right there in town, Sherwood.
Oh,
Remember, there used to be a 2 or 3 story wooden building there.
yeah, burnt.
On the north side. Did it burn? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, these Wenzel, old lady Wenzel ran that. And
I never knew those people.
her 2 daughters. Well, anyway, she wanted to go on a ski trip with me several times, and she came up to the cabin a few times. We were interested, and the wife says, "Well, why don't you take her?" And I said, "Well, she don't know how to ski to begin with." I didn't say it was she could hear it there. And she said that she promised that she would do the cooking in the cabins and all that, clean them up, clean out. Well, I know a fellow over in Boulder, some athlete over there, big husky guy, wrestler, I think he was. And he was up in the park, and I said, "Do you want to make a trip this weekend over Long Lake and then over Mummy Range and down to North Fork?" And yeah, well, I said, "I got a job for you." So I got a little Halloween and run up. I seen her name in the paper, so over in Boulder. God, she must be, yeah, she's old time. Anyway, we took her, and by God, we like never got to Long Lake. It was pretty near dark when we got there,
Long way.
and she was just plumb pooped. So we got to the cabin and shoveled the snow away from her. She went in, and I told her to open the boxes and told her where the food was, and started a fire and built it. She got out some of those blankets and laid down on one of the beds. And I forget this fellow's name, and I said, "Well, you know, leave her alone a while. We'd go up the lake, look around." And so we did. You know, we was gone half an hour more, maybe longer than that. Come back, and I don't believe she'd moved. The result was I had to make the beds, cook supper and everything, wash the dishes even. So next day we went back down a ways, then went over east of over the pass. There's a trail across
From
there.
Black Canyon?
Well, not into Black Canyon, but over into North Fork.
Oh.
Over Mummy.
Oh,
over
yeah.
to Hague. There's a trail across there. You could ride a horse.
Yeah, I know there is.
I took Mrs. Rivers and Mrs. Carr across there later. Well, anyhow, a horseback back out there. Anyway, I had a difficult time getting her up the top of that mountain. He carried her skis and her pack, and I had a pretty good load myself. And we finally got to the top, and I thought, well, when we get up there, it's downhill, and it's snowbanks up above and down the tip of it all. She can surely slide downhill. She'd slide about as far as near to that fence, and down she'd go. Well, getting her up was just like lifting a sack of potatoes. You could get her feet up and her shoulders up, but the rest of her was a two-man job. Well, she got so tired before we got down to the cabin. It was dark. Think of it. Did that distance. Took us all day. And she kept saying, "How much further is it? I can't go anywhere." I said, "Just a little ways."
Just a half a mile.
So when I got about as far as from here to the wall there, I said, "We better take a little rest now." She leaned up against the tree. She said, "How far is it?" I said, "It's just a little ways." She said, "You've been saying that all afternoon." Well, anyway, I didn't want her to pass out, see. As tired as she was, when we see the cabin, she might just collapse, see. I knew that it could. So, went right around that tree and there was a cabin. There was 2 rooms, you know. And we put her in that north room there, heating stove. And we went around the south side building. I had to cook supper. I had to make the bed for her and fix it. Went in there and again but that's what I was thinking about. She was just like a sack of potatoes. He'd get her feet up and I'd get her shoulders up, but the rest of her is just like a... Anyway, she got to go on a ski trip. I don't think she ever did learn to ski. Some people don't, you know. Older people can get to it. Younger people will learn it.
Yeah.
But once in a while they find older people can pick it up and learn it.
Yeah.
But ordinarily, when they get older, they don't. Their sense of balance is gone. So,
They get a little more sensible too.
say, did you say you want to take some pictures
I wanted to get
outside? We better do it before
Yeah.
the sun goes
All
down.
right. I'll shut this
You
off.
ought to go out there.
Okay. Talk a little bit, Jack. There you
Yeah.
are.
Get your coat on.
Is that still in here?
Yeah.
Can you get it now?
Yes. I was reading one of your little books in there by Hughes of poetry.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, he got out some good stuff. Yeah. One of my books is dedicated to him.
Oh,
One of those
I
Ranger
have
first
to try and find
Ranger
one
or
of
guide books or something of that order.
those.
Caps off or on?
No, leave him on. Stand just a little closer to him there, Mr.
Yeah. And when you get ready, you let me know.
Hell, they have to put on glasses to even look at this camera.
Oh boy!
I'm getting strawberries.
Haven't you?
No.
Shucks.
I never had any strawberries when I just happened first time. Yeah.
Strawberries and ice cream.
Yeah. No?
Recording's ready. You can see the needle move when he talks.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jack. Start.
Well, now, Harold, a book like this is, you have to think to read it, and it's not as good as books that for amusement or escape. This is really, you got to think a little bit to read it. But
It sure makes you think.
it's an argument against wars, of course.
I go back over and over it a lot of times.
At times when this was written, it wasn't timely. Right now it's timely. So more people are reading it.
Yeah.
And I never thought much about it, but some of my PhD friends have said that it was the vocabulary was marvelous. He couldn't figure out how anybody that never went to school could ever acquire a vocabulary like this. He said it was far beyond most college graduates. And I never thought of it to go through here. I do find that the shades of meaning, well, I worked on it to get the right shades of meaning.
You had your own thoughts too, not somebody else's.
Yeah, and I had to.
That's the trouble. You're a college graduate. He's got all
Yeah, get
somebody else's ideas pounded
I
into his head,
imagine
and none of
so.
his own.
something in here about that. It wasn't good to get all thinking in a can. You remember that line?
No, I don't remember that line.
That modern man in college just had a tendency to have all this stuff canned, and all of this information and education was canned. And it wasn't good for humans to get all of their education in a can,
I don't think so.
from a can. So,
My ideas come out of my head, most of them, and I don't think that if I'd have gone on through college, finished out like I started to, that I would have been able to write like I have.
Hey, have you got a short poem in there, Jack, that you can read?
what?
You got a short poem in there you can read?
Oh, you might find something in there.
First, they're all inspirational.
Oh,
Will you
I haven't
need?
got my glasses.
He needs his
Oh,
glasses,
wait a minute.
Howard.
This one was written to the wife years and years ago, but I used it in this book. Clearly and sweetly it comes in the morning, over the misty sea, coaxing and calling, rising and falling, murmuring tenderly. Lightly and gaily it comes at the noontide, far from the hills and plain, whispering and singing, ebbing and ringing, calling again and again. Softly and gently it comes in the evening, over the twilit hills, throbbing and welling, fading and swelling, full of a wondrous thrill. Tenderly sighing it comes from the darkness, up from the silent sea, playfully stealing and merrily pealing, calling me home to thee. I was in the Navy at the time, that years ago.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Are any of those books in print, Mr.
What?
Moomaw? Are any of those books in print?
Yeah, you got them up here.
Oh,
I think
okay.
should have. She had some, Recollection of Ranger, and as I say, these books, until recently, haven't been selling too good, this one. But I always have her take 2 or 3 of them, and when she runs out of them others, well, she sells those. And I really, after people read them, they come down here to see me. They get something else out of it.
Yeah,
They suddenly find out
that's why we're
it was
here.
all right. Better than they thought it was going to be. That should be about it.